So the video you've all been waiting for and hounding and pestering me for, the 7800X3D review. Now, many of you have been asking, why did it take so long for this video to come out? And I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing to talk about. Okay, so let me rewind here for a sec and talk you through basically what's been going on since I've gotten this CPU. So chronologically speaking, the 7950X3D comes out first, right? That whole thing is a complete scam. You guys all know the story about that, right? So what happened with that one was I ended up disabling one of the CCDs, did all my benchmarks with one of them disabled, the non-cache one, right? Now, so I get this one in the mail, and then the first thing I do is just confirm whether the results are the exact same. So I throw this thing in with the same kit of memory, same motherboard, enable the XMP profile, run the benchmarks, and they're all exactly the same. So then first thing I'm like, well, how do I make a video when all the results are the exact same? I already made this video. And then we were joking around in the Discord, I could just do a cheap Chinese dub and just re-release the exact same video. So then I'm like, okay, well, let's try overclocking this thing. Maybe I got a better silicon quality on it. Which I did, in fact, get a really good one. This one does 6300 on the memory and 2133 on the fabric. So this one, I mean, I guess you could say is quite a bit better than that 7950X3D I had. So I was like, okay, now let me rerun all these benchmarks in the max OC form of this chip versus the other chip. And then again, to my surprise, the results were the exact same. So that extra 100 megahertz on the memory and the fabric speed actually didn't end up yielding any results whatsoever. 1 to 2% variance between the two chips. So now I'm stuck in a situation where I've literally already benchmarked this CPU, and the extra overclocking headroom did absolutely nothing for performance. So we already have all the numbers. You can just go watch that video. And then, so thirdly, I was like, okay, what about the AM dip? With that extra 100 megahertz on the fabric, will it still dip? So at first I was running around and everything seemed really good. I was like, oh, maybe the dip is gone. Look at that. The FPS and the 1% lows were really consistent. And then as soon as I enter downtown here, watch what happens to the 1% lows. It just goes all over the place. It spikes up and then it spikes all the way down to 40 and then it comes back. So that's actually a 0.1% low of what's doing it there. So yeah, the 1% lows in Warzone are still horrendous on this thing compared to the Intel counterpart. Now, by this point, I'm like 5 days into this thing, and I haven't gotten anywhere in terms of any type of value for a video. And then, after all that, fourthly, a supporter in the Discord thought of a very unique, interesting way to lock all the cores on this CPU. So I tried the method and it actually worked. So now I'm like almost a week in, right? I'm like, okay, well, I locked all the cores to 5 gigahertz on this thing. By the way, when you actually do that, it runs very hot. I see why they didn't let people do that. But regardless, for the purposes of this video, I got it to run at 5 gigahertz, all core locked. No fluctuating, none of that nonsense. Then I did the benchmarks again. And then the results were all the exact same as the PBO tune that I did prior. So now I'm 4 different sets of benchmarks deep, all with the exact same results as the previous chip. So interesting aside though, I was wondering why the all-core overclock performed the exact same as the manual PBO tune. And then when I went into hardware info there, I found that the cores were still trying to downclock whenever possible. Instead of downclocking to the base, they would downclock down to 800 megahertz, or they would try to park themselves, I should say. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? So you can see here we're running 120 BCLK, right? Bus clock times the 42 multiplier means that the CPU core is locked at 5 gigahertz. Now, if you go over to hardware info over here, Windows does show the cores locked at 5 gigahertz, but if you go to the effective clocks here, it doesn't seem to care. It's still parking all of the cores as much as it can, right? Which is the problem that we have with this CPU. So if you also go to the power plan here, I am using the ultimate power plan. So it's not Windows doing the downclocking and idling. It's the CPU itself trying to do it, right? So if you go and run any kind of stress test, though, it does bump them all up to 5 gigahertz. Just takes a second. Yeah, see, so they instantly snap to 5 gigahertz, but they're still trying to park themselves, right? So let's go pause it, go back over here, and then instantly down to that 800 megahertz, 900 megahertz down snap, right? So the BCLK all-core lock doesn't really make a difference compared to the PBO for this CPU. And before anybody in the comments say anything, I tried going into the BIOS and disabling all the C states and the idle states and all that stuff. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't change the actual idle state of the CPU. So even when doing a manual all-core lock on this CPU, the cores are still constantly trying to park themselves whenever possible. So now I'm a week and a half in with this chip. I've been screwing around and I cannot make it perform any differently than the 7950X3D numbers that I already published, 2 months ago now. Which, on the other hand, is exactly why I said the other CPU was going to be a scam, because this one's $300 cheaper and is literally identical in every single way. Even if you get a better bin or a worse bin, it's all the same. It doesn't even matter. This thing, doesn't matter what you do to this thing, it games all the same no matter what. If you manually tune timings, you might get an extra 10% out of it, and that's about it. So I wasted about 2 weeks of time with this CPU to waste about 8 minutes of yours with this review. Now, this video was brought to you by the supporters, because they bought me the CPU, obviously, for all this testing. But we're not going to stop there. You know what the supporters also bought me? A Debauer D-Lid kit and a direct die frame for the Ryzen 7000. So the plan is with this direct die kit is, remember that all-core overclock that I was talking about how it ran insanely hot? Well, if we remove the heat barrier as an issue, can we maybe all-core clock this thing higher and then maybe get it to perform better? I'm not sure if it would or would not. Now, we're long past the performance of this CPU. Now we're just in scientific, theoretical interest territory now. So we're going to save that for the next video. Make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss it, because AMD videos are good clicks. And I'm going to leave you on this cliffhanger because I want to milk this for a few videos. So we'll do the D-Lid attempt and the max overclock in the next one. And if you like the content, hit that subscribe button, do all that YouTube SEO stuff, like, share, subscribe. Comment down below how you feel about watching an 8-minute useless video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Talk to you later.